Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Live and Let Die, the 8th Bond film in the franchise, directed by Guy Hamilton. And this is the first Roger Moore Bond film, 1973, and he would go on to star in 7 Bond films in total, but a lot has been said about Roger Moore over the years, his portrayal of Bond and, generally the films he starred in, for example Octopussy, A View to a Kill, Moonraker as well. Some of these are considered, among the worst Bonds. With the only really respected film being The Spy Who Loved Me, a general consensus that is. And it's considered to be maybe the worst Bond, and just some people say he just doesn't give good performances. And I do like Roger Moore as Bond, and certainly here it's a massive improvement over Sean Connery's really bad performance in Diamonds Are Forever, which I thought was a dreadful film. But it's a breath of fresh air. Roger Moore in this film I really liked, and overall I do like Roger Moore. I think some of the problems is usually to do with the script of the films, especially the later ones. Most of them, they're just stupid scripts, and if he gave a serious performance in them films, maybe it would have, the tone, it wouldn't have matched his performance. But this is a weird one, because this film is campy, not much so as Octopussy. But Roger Moore gives more of a serious performance, probably his most serious performance, of the Bond films. And you'd think that wouldn't work, because it doesn't match, but weirdly it does. And his first outing as Bond, I warmed to him straight away, upon this rewatch. And while he's not as good as Sean Connery in his prime or some of the others, maybe he is the worst Bond, but he's not bad. And he has the charm, he has the the smoothness, the likability. He's not quite as ruthless as some of the others, but he gives a good performance, certainly in this film. Now the pre-title sequence, it's a bit underwhelming, to say the least, but it's probably one of the worst parts of the film. It's a bit cheap and that, but it's an okay intro. It sets things in motion, and adds a bit of mystery. And it's basically where the British agents are killed in the crowd, and this kind of sets in motion Bond's mission. Once the credits are over. But the pre-title sequence, it could have been better. I think it's among the worst, I would say, of the franchise. The title sequence, however, is stunning. I really liked the way it was put together, but the thing that makes it is the theme by Paul McCartney and Wings. Along with Goldfinger's theme, I think this is definitely the best. And Paul McCartney, the Beatles are my favourite band of all time, and in terms of Paul McCartney's solo performances, I think this is definitely one of his best. It's just perfect as well for a Bond film, and it was pretty much the first rock and roll kind of song to be in the Bond film, and later on in the film with the action, it used perfectly suits the film. And this is one of the only films where John Barry couldn't score the film, so it was George Martin who took over, the Beatles producer, and he scored the film, and I think it was just a brilliant score, used perfectly for the action. And the intro scenes, the plot it unravels, and Roger Moore goes on his mission. And along the way, he comes into contact with the Bond girl, played by Jane Seymour. Solitaire is her name, and she's kind of like a tarot card reader. And she's a fine Bond girl. She's not one of the best, but she's not one of the worst. I'd say she's in the middle. You could say it's a bit of a muted performance, a bit bland, but it's fine. She's quite likable. And the chemistry is quite good with Roger Moore. And the villains in this film, I thought were really memorable, really funny, entertaining. Yeah, Mr. Big, played by Yaphet Kotto, he's really good. And then you've also got Julius Harris, who plays Teehee. You know, it's a bunch of villains, you know, who, while their campy performances, you know, they do work, I think, in this film. And this is a weird film because it's one of the only Bonds which I feel that it's purely a comedy, you know, action as well, obviously, but I think I judge this more on being a comedy than most of the other Bonds. Yeah, some of the later ones would be unintentionally funny, but I think this generally is trying to be more of a comedy, and you can see that in all the performances, you know, the villains and stuff. And you know, it is a funny film, really funny film, and as an entertaining, you know, an action film comedy, it works really well. I think this is an underrated film, definitely. It's not well received really too much, you know, or not a lot of the Roger Moores are, but you know, I think this is a lot better than a lot of people say. You know, the action in this film, another thing, is amazing. I thought, you know, it's edited really well. You know, there's great set pieces, and as I say, the music, you know, the theme and the score, the way it's used, it perfectly suits the action. It just gives it, you know, the action that epic feel. And you know, there's a lot of great action scenes in this film. You know, the bus scene especially would be one of my favourites. And you know, it's got a really good pace as well to this film. You know, the acts that are in the, you know, the acts go from one to another. You know, quite seamlessly. And I just thought it was really entertaining. You know, while not a masterpiece, or one of the best Bond films, it's certainly a lot better than a lot of people say. You've also got some, you know, some other just side characters who they're definitely memorable. You know, Sheriff Pepper, played by Clifton James. You know, he's one of the highlights I think of this film. He wasn't good, I would say now, in the Man with the Golden Gun, really, but here he's, you know, he's used really well for the comedy, I thought, and it is generally funny, I thought, and he adds, you know, a presence to the film, and just adds to the, you know, the entertainment value, and you know, the film it's really well directed, I thought, it's shot well, you know, and it just has quite a, you know, an energetic feel and a great flow, you know, to the film. The story elements, while they're not necessarily that believable, they're, you know, they unfold well and they're mixed, you know, the action, and of course, you know, the villains, the way they're introduced and everything. You know, I would say, you know, some of the last act, you know, there's a couple of bits that are a bit too stupid. A couple of the deaths, you probably know what I'm on about when you see it. You know, they're a bit stupid, but I don't have many massive flaws with this film really, and I thought it was definitely a great ride, and you know, by no means is this one of the worst Bonds, definitely not, and you know, a breath of fresh air after Diamonds Are Forever, and Roger Moore, a really good intro to the role as Bond, I thought, and certainly one of his better performances in his films. And you know, I suppose that this is, you know, this is a unique film in the Bond franchise. You know, it's got some wacky, you know, out there elements. You know, it's got the voodoo stuff in it, and you know, but as a comedy, it does work. It manages to work really well, I thought. And you know, I think definitely the ending shot kind of sums up what they were trying to go for in this film. If you've seen it, you'll know what I mean. And this is how as well. You know, it kind of implies this is just, you know, meant to be a fun ride, kind of like a theme park ride, and nothing more really. And as a comedy, as I say, and an action, you know, it works really well. Overall, it's a really good Bond film, I thought. I'm going to give it an 87%, which is a really high score. You know, there's some things that kind of drag it down. Bit, you know, the last act, and you know, some of it, you know, you can't take too seriously. It doesn't quite reach that level of greatness as some of the other Bonds, but and you know, the intro is a bit cheap, But overall, yeah, no, I really enjoyed this film, and I thought it was really well put together. The action, the score was wonderful. Suited the action perfectly. Great intro to Roger Moore. Solid Bond girl, villains. There's not much flaws really, big flaws with this film. And I thought it just worked really, really well. And yeah, so the next film will be The Man with the Golden Gun. Feel free to check out my other reviews on my channel. And soon I'm going to be, towards the end of this Bond series, I'm going to be starting another director series. And that will probably be Martin Scorsese and Stanley Kubrick at the same time as well. Two great filmmakers, both in my top 10, and I will just be, trying to at least do their films in order of release date. But Scorsese, I've not got all of his films on Blu-ray and Sky and etc. So they might not all be done in order. But Kubrick, I've got the Kubrick collection behind me. I've got two Kubrick collections, and I'll definitely be able to do them with ease. So I look forward to that. And thanks for watching this review.